The cream-colored envelope was waiting for Naomi Bridgewater on her doormat at 6:14 in the morning, and the moment she saw it, her hands began to shake before her mind even understood why. It was a Tuesday. The kind of soft October morning in Atlanta, where the air smells like wet leaves and somebody's grandmother is already frying bacon 2 doors down. Naomi had just come back from her early walk, her sneakers still damp from the dew, her thermos of coffee still warm in her hand. She was humming a song her grandma Esther used to sing in the kitchen, something about morning mercies and tender mornings, and she was thinking about the little girl in room 412 of the pediatric ward, a 7-year-old named Zuri Daniels who had asked her last night if heaven had birthday cakes. Then she saw the envelope. It sat on her welcome mat the way a snake sits on a path. Pale, smooth, expensive. The paper was thick and creamy, the kind that costs more than a regular person's lunch. Her name was written on the front in gold ink, in careful calligraphy, the letters curling like vines. Miss Naomi Bridgewater. Apartment 3B. She bent down slowly. Her knees did not want to bend. Her body, in some quiet way, was already trying to warn her. She picked up the envelope, and she felt the weight of it, the strange heaviness of paper that has been waiting for her, and she carried it inside. She did not open it right away. She set it on her small kitchen table, the one with the wobbly leg that she kept meaning to fix, and she stared at it. The kettle started to whistle. She did not move. The morning news played softly from the living room, talking about traffic on Interstate 285 and a cold front coming in. She did not hear it, because Naomi Bridgewater knew, deep in the place where women know things before they want to know them, that this envelope was going to break her. She had been seeing Tobias Whitaker for 6 months. 6 full months. 6 months of late dinners in quiet restaurants tucked behind tall hedges. 6 months of him calling her his queen, his peace, his soft place to land. 6 months of him saying he was traveling for work, that his family was complicated, that he had to be careful because of his last name. 6 months of him not bringing her around his people. 6 months of her trying not to notice. She picked up the envelope. Her thumb slid under the flap. The paper made a small tearing sound, almost like a sigh, almost like a thing giving up. She pulled out the card inside. It was an engraved invitation. Gold edges. Cream paper. A small monogrammed seal at the top in the shape of 2 letters intertwined, T and S. The Whitaker family and the Pemberton family joyfully request your presence at the wedding of their beloved children Tobias Cornelius Whitaker and Solange Marie Pemberton on Saturday, the 18th of November, 2025 at the Atlanta Cathedral of St. Philip 4:30 p.m. in the afternoon reception to follow at the Whitaker estate. Naomi read it once. She read it twice. The third time the word stopped meaning anything. The letters became little black shapes on white paper, and her hands were no longer shaking because her hands had stopped feeling like hers. The kitchen was very quiet. The kettle had stopped whistling. The news had moved on to weather. Somewhere in the building, a baby was crying. She walked, very slowly, to her bathroom. She knelt in front of the toilet. She did not cry. She did not throw up. She just knelt there, holding the invitation, and she said, out loud, to nobody, to the tile walls and the porcelain and the God her grandmother had taught her to believe in, he was using me. The words tasted like metal. 6 months. 6 months of believing she was the woman he came home to. 6 months of him kissing her forehead at the door of his car and telling her that one day, soon, he was going to take her home to meet his mother. 6 months of her telling Renee, her best friend, that she thought maybe, finally, this was the one. That she had waited her whole life to be loved like this. That God had finally sent her somebody real. He had been engaged the entire time. She did not know that yet, not really, not all of it, but she knew enough. She knew the way a woman knows when a man's eyes slide off her face 1 second too soon. She knew the way a woman knows when a phone rings and a man steps out of the room and comes back with his shoulders too straight. She knew the way a woman knows when somebody is lying to her with their whole body. She had been pretending not to know for a long time. The invitation was the proof. The proof had walked itself to her door at 6:14 in the morning and waited for her on the welcome mat, the way truth always waits for the people who try to outrun it. Naomi sat down on the bathroom floor. The cold tile pressed into her thighs through her thin sweatpants. She held the invitation against her chest, like a child holds a hurt, and she finally let herself cry. She cried the kind of crying that has no sound, the kind that comes from a place so deep inside a person that their throat does not even know how to make noise. Her shoulders shook. Her face was wet. Her mouth was open, but nothing came out. She thought about her grandmother. She thought about the years Grandma Esther had spent raising her after her mother died, the long nights in the church basement kitchen with the smell of collard greens and cornbread, the way Grandma had always said, "Baby, the Lord don't waste a tear. He collects every one. He puts them in a bottle, and one day he pours them back out as something good." Naomi did not feel anything good coming. She felt only the floor under her, and the paper against her chest, and the slow, quiet, terrible knowledge that she was not the woman in the white dress. She had never been. She was the temporary one. And she did not know yet, as she sat there on her bathroom floor in the soft Atlanta morning, that this was not the end of the story. It was only the beginning. She did not know yet that within 6 weeks she would walk into a building where Tobias Whitaker would be unable to look at her, that she would shake the hand of the bride, that she would meet a child whose life would change everything, and that the whole city would learn the name Naomi Bridgewater for reasons that had nothing to do with a man.
She did not know any of that yet.
She only knew the floor and the paper and the breaking. And somewhere, very faintly, very far away, she could hear her grandmother's voice in her head, the way she always heard it when things got hard. "Hold on, baby," the voice said. "Hold on. Morning is coming." But the morning, on this particular Tuesday in October, had already come. And it had brought with it the worst news of Naomi Bridgewater's life. She stayed on the bathroom floor for 1 whole hour. Then she got up, washed her face, brushed her teeth, put on her scrubs, picked up her keys, and went to work, because little Zuri Daniels in room 412 was waiting for her, and Naomi Bridgewater had learned a long time ago that the world does not stop spinning just because your heart has been ripped clean out of your chest. But before we tell you what happened next, we have to go back. We have to go back 6 months. We have to go back to the rainy night Naomi met Tobias Whitaker, when she still believed that good men existed in the world, and that one of them might one day choose her. 6 months earlier, on the second Friday in April, the sky over Atlanta cracked open and rained like it had something to prove. Naomi Bridgewater had finished a 14-hour shift at Grady Pediatric Hospital. Her feet hurt. Her back hurt. Her heart hurt, the way it always hurt after a long shift in the children's ward, where she spent her hours holding small hands through fevers and singing soft hymns to babies who could not yet speak. She loved her job. She also knew that loving her job was the thing that was going to kill her if she did not learn to put it down. That night, Renee Caldwell had refused to let her go straight home. "Girl, you're coming with me," Renee had said on the phone earlier that day. Renee had been Naomi's best friend since their freshman year at Spelman College, when they had been assigned the same dorm room and discovered, on the very first night, that they both cried during the song at the end of The Color Purple. They had been inseparable ever since. Renee was a paralegal now, sharp-tongued, fast-walking, always smelling like good perfume and bold opinions. "We are going to that new place on Edgewood. They have small plates. You like small plates. You're going to eat something that is not a hospital cafeteria sandwich, and you're going to look pretty while you do it. Renee, it's pouring outside." And, did the rain wash away your face? Put on the green dress. So Naomi had put on the green dress. The one that made her warm brown skin glow, that clung at her waist and flared at her hips, that her grandmother had once said made her look like a queen who did not yet know it. She had pinned her natural curls up loosely, slipped on the gold hoops that had been her mother's, and run through the rain to Renee's car with a magazine over her head. The restaurant was crowded.
Warm.
Smelled like garlic and rosemary and rain coming off coats. A live jazz band was playing in the corner, soft and slow. Renee found them a small table by the window. They ordered wine and shrimp and crab cakes, and Renee complained about her boss, and Naomi laughed for the first time in 3 days, and the rain kept falling on the windows like the sky was washing something clean. That was when she saw him. He was sitting alone at the bar. He was the kind of man you noticed.
Tall.
broad-shouldered, well-dressed in a dark navy suit with no tie, the top button of his shirt undone. His skin was a deep warm brown, his hair cut close, his jawline sharp. He had the kind of face that looked carved. He had not seen her yet. He was looking down at his phone, his thumb scrolling, his other hand wrapped around a glass of something amber. Renee saw her looking. Renee always saw. Renee said, leaning forward. Now that, my dear, is a whole man. Hush. I will not hush. Renee, I am tired. I am wet. I came here for crab cakes. And the Lord has put a snack in front of you. Don't be ungrateful. Naomi laughed, and in the second she laughed, the man at the bar looked up. Their eyes met across the room. He smiled. It was a slow smile. The kind of smile a man gives when he has decided, in the space of a single breath, that he is going to walk over to a table.
And he did.
He picked up his glass, and he stood up, and he walked across the warm, crowded restaurant, and he stopped beside their table, and he said, in a voice as smooth as honey poured slow, "Forgive me, but I have been trying to figure out for the last 10 minutes how to invent a reason to come over here. And then you laughed. And the reason invented itself." Renee actually choked on her wine. Naomi did not know what to say. She felt heat rise in her cheeks. She felt the kind of flutter she had not felt in years. She tried to be cool. She tried to be the woman her grandmother had raised her to be, the kind of woman who did not get rattled by smooth-talking men. She failed.
Hi, she said.
Hi, he said. I'm Tobias. Naomi. Naomi. He said her name the way some people say a prayer.
Slowly.
Like he was tasting it. May I sit? Renee, who would later tell this story at every Sunday dinner for the next 4 months, suddenly remembered she had to make a phone call. She slid out of her chair, gave Naomi a look that said, "Girl, do not blow this," and walked off toward the bathroom with her phone in her hand. Tobias sat down. He did not stop looking at her. "Naomi," he said, "what do you do when you are not sitting in a restaurant ruining men's evenings just by laughing?" She told him she was a pediatric nurse. She told him about her work a little, the parts that did not break her open in front of strangers. He listened the way she had not been listened to in years. He asked questions. He leaned in. When she said something funny, he laughed, and his laugh was warm and real and reached his eyes. He told her he was in real estate. His family had a company, he said, mostly commercial properties in Atlanta and Charleston. He said his mother was difficult and his father was tired, and that he was the son who had been groomed to take over even though he had once wanted to be an architect. He said it with a small, sad smile, and Naomi believed every word because Naomi Bridgewater was a woman who believed people when they told her about their pain. She would think back, later, about how easily he had pulled out his pain like a key. How easily he had unlocked her. He asked for her number that night. She gave it to him. He texted her before she even got home. He said, "I do not want this to be a thing where I disappear for 3 days and play games. I am too old for that. May I take you to dinner Saturday?" She said yes. He took her to a small Italian place in Buckhead. He pulled out her chair. He ordered a bottle of wine she would not have ordered for herself, and it was the best wine she had ever tasted. He did not look at his phone once. He asked about her grandmother. He asked about her mother, and when she said her mother had passed when she was 12, his face changed. He reached across the table. He took her hand. He said, "I am sorry, Naomi. I am so sorry." His hand was warm. She held it for a long time. That was the night she made the mistake, although she did not know it was a mistake. She made the mistake of letting Tobias Whitaker become a story she was already telling herself. Within 2 weeks they were seeing each other 3 nights a week. Within a month she had given him a key to her apartment so he could come over and rest after long meetings. Within 2 months, she was telling Renee over Sunday brunch that she thought maybe, just maybe, this was the one. Renee had been quiet that brunch. Renee had stirred her grits and not looked up. "Naomi," Renee had finally said, "have you met any of his people? He says his family is complicated." MHM. What does MHM mean? It means MHM, Naomi. Naomi had laughed and changed the subject because she did not want to hear what Renee was not saying. She did not know yet that Renee was right. She did not know yet that Tobias Whitaker had a fiancée. She did not know yet that the woman he was supposed to marry was the daughter of a state senator, and that the wedding had been planned for over a year, and that he was, in the eyes of his family, simply having one last little adventure before he settled down. She did not know that Tobias's mother had once told him, at a private family dinner that Naomi would later read about, "Have your fun, my son. But marry the right kind of woman. Marry our kind." She did not know that she was, to him, an experiment, a vacation, a temporary woman. She only knew that she was happy. For the first time in a very long time, she was happy. And the rain, on that second Friday in April, kept falling outside her bedroom window long after Tobias kissed her forehead and went home to a life she did not know existed. Looking back, Naomi Bridgewater would always say there were signs. There were always signs. The first sign came in early May, just 3 weeks after that rainy night. They were having dinner at a quiet restaurant on the north side of town, a place with linen napkins and a piano in the corner. Tobias had reserved a table in the back, near a small fireplace, the kind of table that whispered romance. Halfway through their meal, his phone rang. He looked down at it. His face changed for half a second, just half a second, like a curtain dropping and being yanked back up. He silenced the call. "My mother," he said. "She can wait." But 2 minutes later it rang again. He stood up. He smiled at Naomi, an apologetic smile, and he stepped outside into the front of the restaurant. Through the front window, Naomi could see him pacing, his free hand in his pocket, his face tense. He was speaking quickly. He was nodding. At one point he laughed, a short laugh, and then his face went serious again. He came back inside 10 minutes later.
He sat down.
He did not meet her eyes for a long moment.
"I am so sorry," he said.
"Family things. Is everything okay?" "It is fine. My mother just likes to feel important." She let it go. But that night, lying in his arms, she had felt it. Some small cold thing in her chest, like a stone dropped in a pond. She had told herself she was being silly. She had told herself she was looking for problems where there were none. She had told herself that all men get phone calls from their mothers. The second sign came in late May. She had been with Tobias for almost 2 months, and she had still not met a single person from his life. Not a friend, not a cousin, not a coworker, not a man he played basketball with on Saturday mornings. Nobody. She had asked him about it once, gently, lying on his chest on a Sunday afternoon. "Tobias? When am I going to meet your people?" He had been quiet for a long time. He had stroked her hair. He had said, "Soon. I promise. I just want to get it right. My family is, like I said, complicated. My mother is going to ask you 100 questions, and I want to make sure you are ready for her, not the other way around. I want to protect you from her, not throw you to her." It had sounded so kind. It had sounded like love. She had not noticed, at the time, that he had not actually given her a date. The third sign came in early June. Renee had finally met Tobias. They had all gone out for drinks one night in Midtown. It had not gone well. Not because Tobias was rude. He was charming, polite. He pulled out Renee's chair. He paid for everything. But Renee had been quiet the whole time. After Tobias left to take a phone call, she had leaned across the table and said, low and urgent, "Naomi, listen to me." "Renee." "No, listen. There is something off about that man." "Renee, you barely know him." "I know enough. He answers questions, but he does not answer them. He talks about his work, but he never says the name of his company. He talks about his family, but he never says their names. He has been with you for 2 months, and he has never once mentioned a single thing he is doing on a Sunday. He goes to brunch with his mother on Sundays. Does he? Or does he just say that?" Naomi had looked away. Renee had reached across the table and taken her hand. "Baby, I love you. I just want you to keep your eyes open." "My eyes are open." "Are they?" The fourth sign came in late June. They were at his condo. He had a high-rise apartment in a tower downtown, very modern, very cold, with floor-to-ceiling windows and very little on the walls. She had never been comfortable there. It always felt like a hotel room, like a place a man lived between flights. She had asked him once why there were no pictures. He had said he was waiting for the right ones. That night, while he was in the shower, she was sitting on his bed, scrolling on her phone. She had set her glass of water on his nightstand. She had reached across to grab her phone charger. Her hand had brushed the drawer. The drawer had slid open an inch. Inside the drawer, she had seen a small velvet box. She had not opened it. She had not even touched it. She had just slid the drawer closed, and she had told herself it was probably his cufflinks, his watch, a family ring, anything other than what it might have been.
She had not asked him about it.
She had not asked him about a lot of things. The fifth sign came in late July. Her grandmother had called her on a Tuesday afternoon. "Baby," Grandma Esther said, her voice slow and thick, "I had a dream last night." "Oh, Grandma." "Now don't oh, Grandmummy. You know my dreams come true." "What did you dream?" "I dreamed I saw you standing in a field, holding a piece of paper, and the paper was burning your hands." Naomi had laughed nervously. "Grandma, that's just a dream." "Naomi Joy Bridgewater, you listen to me. Whatever that paper is, it is going to come for you. And when it comes, baby, you have to remember who you are. You have to remember that you came from a line of women who do not stay broken." "Grandma, you are scaring me."
"Good."
Sometimes a little fear wakes us up. The sixth sign came in mid-August. Tobias had to travel for work for 10 days. He told her he was going to Charleston and then to New York and then back. He told her he would call her every night. He did call her every night. But once, in the middle of one of those calls, she had heard a woman's voice in the background. A clear, light, laughing voice, saying something she could not make out.
"Who was that?"
Naomi had asked.
"Who?"
"The woman." "What woman?"
"Oh."
"The hotel staff. They are very chatty here." She had said okay. She had not asked again. The seventh sign was the worst, and she did not even know it was a sign at the time. It came in late September. She had been looking through her local paper, the Atlanta Voice, the small weekly paper that still came in print, the one Grandma Esther always saved for her. There had been an article about a young black socialite from a powerful Atlanta family who had been seen at a charity gala for children's literacy. There had been a photograph. The young woman in the photograph was beautiful.
Tall. Slim.
Light-skinned, with long pressed hair, wearing a designer gown the color of champagne. Her name was Solange Pemberton. The article said Miss Pemberton was the daughter of State Senator Cordell Pemberton, and that she was engaged to be married in November to the heir of a prominent Atlanta real estate family. The article did not say which real estate family. The article did not say the name Tobias Whitaker. Naomi had looked at the photograph for a long time. Something in her chest had clenched. Some small, soft, terrified animal inside her had whispered, "Look closer, look closer." She had folded the paper. She had put it in the recycling bin. She had told herself she was being a foolish, jealous, insecure woman, and she had gone to bed. That had been 10 days before the cream-colored envelope arrived on her welcome mat. 10 days. She would think, later, that her body had known the whole time. Her body had been screaming at her the whole time. Her grandmother had dreamed about it. Renee had warned her. The phone calls, the locked drawer, the missing weekends, the woman's voice in the hotel. She had ignored all of it, because Naomi Bridgewater had wanted, more than anything, to be loved. And sometimes, when a woman wants to be loved badly enough, she will mistake any voice that says her name softly for the voice of love. She would not make that mistake again. Not after the morning of October 14th. Not after she sat on her bathroom floor with a wedding invitation pressed against her chest. Not ever again. The week before the envelope arrived, Tobias was different. Naomi noticed it the way you notice a chill in the house before you realize a window is open somewhere. He was distracted, distant. He kissed her on the forehead instead of the mouth. He left the room to take phone calls more often. He told her he could not see her on Saturday because he had a family thing. He told her he could not see her on Sunday because he had a work thing. He told her he could not see her on Monday because he had a thing that I cannot get out of, my love. His love. He had started calling her his love about 2 months in. She had loved hearing it. She had collected those words like small, smooth stones, kept them in the pocket of her heart, pulled them out and counted them late at night when she could not sleep. Now the words felt thin. That Wednesday, the week before the envelope, he had come over for dinner. She had cooked. She had spent 2 hours making the lemon pepper chicken and the smothered green beans and the cornbread Grandma Esther had taught her to make when she was 9 years old. She had set the table with the good plates. She had put a small candle in the middle. She had even bought fresh flowers, white roses, because she had read once that white roses meant new beginnings. He had been 37 minutes late. When he came in, he had not noticed the candle. He had not noticed the flowers. He had not asked her how her day was. He had sat down at the table, and he had eaten in silence for almost 5 minutes before he looked up, blinked, and said, "I am sorry. I have a lot on my mind." "What is on your mind, Tobias?" "Work things. Boring things. You don't want to know." "I do want to know." He had looked at her, and for a long second, his face had been blank, like he had forgotten who she was. Then it had come back, the warm look, the soft smile, and he had reached across the table and taken her hand.
Naomi.
"You are good. You are too good for the boring things. Let me eat this beautiful food, and let me look at this beautiful woman, and let me forget the boring things for one night."
She had let it go.
She had let it go because she had spent 2 hours cooking, and she had wanted the night to be sweet, and she had not wanted to fight. He had left at 10:30. He had said he had to be at a meeting early in the morning. He had kissed her forehead, again, and he had gone. She had stood at her window and watched him drive away. The taillights of his black SUV had blurred in the rain. She had felt something cold in her chest. She had told herself, again, that she was being insecure. That Thursday he had not called. That Friday he had not called. On Saturday morning, she had finally called him. She had been about to leave a voice message when he picked up. He had sounded out of breath.
Naomi. Hi.
"Hi, baby. I am so sorry. It has been a week." "Tobias, what is going on?" "Just family things. Mother things. You know how she gets." "I do not know how she gets, Tobias. I have never met her." He had been silent for a long second. Then he had said, "You are right. I am sorry. I want to fix that."
Soon.
"Very soon. I promise." "When?" "Soon." She had hung up before she said something she would regret. That Saturday night, she had sat on her couch with a cup of tea and her grandmother's old Bible, the one with the cracked leather cover and her grandmother's handwriting in the margins. She had opened it at random, the way Grandma Esther had taught her to do when she was confused, the way Grandma Esther called, letting the Lord pick the page. The page had opened to Jeremiah. Her eyes had landed on a single line. "I will heal your wounds, says the Lord." Naomi had cried then. Quiet, slow tears. Not because she knew what was coming, but because some part of her, the part that had been trying for weeks not to know, had finally stopped pretending. On Sunday she had gone to church. Her grandmother had been in the front pew, in her usual purple hat with a small feather, her lap full of her purse and her fan, and her tin of butter mints. Pastor Hollis Greaves had preached about the woman at the well, the one who had been used by 5 husbands before she met Jesus, and Naomi had cried so hard during the sermon that Grandma Esther had reached over and pressed a tissue into her hand without even looking at her. After church, in the parking lot, Grandma had taken her face in both hands. "Naomi Joy." "Grandma. What is wrong with you, baby?" "Nothing. You are a terrible liar. You always have been." Naomi had laughed, a watery laugh, and she had said, "Grandma, I am just tired." Grandma had looked at her for a long moment. "Baby, you remember what I told you about that dream I had?" "Yes." "You remember about the paper?" "Yes."
Baby.
Whatever is coming for you, you let it come. You hear me? You do not run from it. You do not hide from it. You stand in your own 2 shoes, and you let it come, and you trust the Lord and your grandmother to walk you through it." "Yes, ma'am." "And Naomi?" "Yes, Grandma. You're going to be all right. Do you hear me? You're going to be more than all right. You're going to be magnificent. The Lord is fixing to do a thing in your life, baby, and the breaking is just the part where he cracks the seed open. Naomi had hugged her grandmother so hard, she had felt the small bones of her back through her thin Sunday dress. She had not known yet, that Sunday afternoon, that the envelope would arrive on Tuesday. But her grandmother had known. Her grandmother always knew. On Monday night, Tobias had come over. He had been there for 3 hours. He had been jumpy the whole time. He had checked his phone every 10 minutes. At one point, he had stepped out onto her small balcony to take a call. She had watched him through the glass door. She had watched his face. She had watched him press his hand to his forehead and pace, and she had watched him laugh, a small laugh, and she had watched him say something that looked, from her side of the glass, like the words "I love you." He had come back inside. He had smiled. He had kissed her, and his kiss had tasted like a thing he was already done with. He had left at 11. At the door, he had stopped, turned around, and looked at her for a long moment. She had felt in that moment the strangest thing, like she was looking at a man she had never met, like he was a stranger who happened to know her name. He had said, "Naomi, you are a good woman." What does that mean? It means what it means. Tobias. I have to go, baby. He had gone. She had stood in her doorway and watched him walk down the hallway. He had not looked back. She had locked the door. She had gone to her bedroom. She had laid down on her bed in her clothes, and she had stared at the ceiling for a very long time. The next morning, the cream-colored envelope was on her welcome mat. And the rest of Naomi Bridgewater's old life, the life where she still believed in Tobias Whitaker, ended at 6:14 in the morning, in the soft October light, with the smell of somebody else's bacon drifting through her apartment building. After Naomi got up off the bathroom floor, she did the only thing she knew how to do. She went to work. She washed her face 3 times in cold water. She put on her scrubs, the soft pink ones that her little patients always said made her look like a flower. She pinned her name tag to her chest. She brushed her hair. She put on a small swipe of brown lip balm. She looked at herself in the mirror, and she said, out loud, to her own reflection, "You will not break in front of those babies. You will not." She did not. She walked into Grady Pediatric at 7:30 in the morning, and she walked through the swinging doors of the children's ward, and she became the woman the children called Miss Naomi. The ward was busy. The night shift was finishing up. The smell of antiseptic and apple juice was in the air. A baby was crying somewhere down the hall. A toddler was throwing a small tantrum about a juice box. 2 of the nurses were laughing about something at the front desk. Life, in the children's ward, never stopped. Dr. Imani Okonkwo was at the nurse's station, looking at a chart. She was a small, sharp-eyed woman in her late 40s, Nigerian-American, with a head wrap the color of a sunset and reading glasses on a beaded chain around her neck. She had been Naomi's mentor for almost 5 years. She was the kind of doctor who knew the name of every child on the ward, the name of every sibling, and the name of every dog at home. She looked up as Naomi came in. She looked at Naomi for 1 second. She took off her glasses.
Naomi.
Come with me. Dr. Okonkwo, I am fine. I am just going to start my round. Come with me, child. Dr. Okonkwo did not raise her voice. She did not need to. She walked Naomi into the small break room behind the nurse's station and shut the door. Sit down. Naomi sat down.
Tell me.
Dr. Okonkwo, I am fine.
Naomi.
You walked through that door just now with the face of a woman who has just been told her house burned down. I have been watching you for 5 years. I know your face. Tell me. And Naomi, who had not cried in the bathroom because she had run out of tears, opened her mouth and started to cry again. She told Dr. Okonkwo everything. The 6 months. The signs. The phone calls. The locked drawer. The newspaper photograph of Solange Pemberton. The cream-colored envelope that morning. The wedding invitation with the gold edges and the monogrammed seal. Dr. Okonkwo listened. She did not interrupt once. When Naomi was finished, Dr. Okonkwo took a long breath. She reached over and took Naomi's hand.
Naomi.
Listen to me very carefully. Yes, ma'am. You are not the first woman this has happened to. You will not be the last. And I am going to tell you something that my own mother told me a long time ago. Are you listening? Yes, ma'am. A man who can do this to you was never your man. He was a borrowed coat. He kept you warm for a season, but he was always going home to somebody else's closet. Do you hear me? Naomi nodded.
Now.
You're going to be very, very angry. You're going to be very, very sad. You're going to want to crawl into bed for a month and pull the covers over your head. But you cannot do that today. Today, there is a little girl in room 412 named Zuri Daniels who is having a very bad day, and she has been asking for Miss Naomi for the last hour. Can you go to her? Yes, ma'am. Then go. Be the woman she needs. Cried Knight. Not now. Naomi had wiped her face. She had stood up. She had walked out of the break room with her chin lifted and her name tag straight, and she had walked down the long hallway to room 412. Zuri Daniels was a 7-year-old girl with sickle cell disease. She was small for her age, with 2 soft puffs of hair, big serious eyes, and a missing front tooth she was very proud of. She had been in and out of the hospital her whole life. She knew the name of every nurse. She knew which vending machine had the best chocolate milk. She knew, at 7 years old, what a blood transfusion was, and she could pronounce hydroxyurea better than most adults. When Naomi walked into the room, Zuri was lying on her side, curled up around her stomach, her face wet with tears. Her mother, Mrs. Daniels, was sitting in the chair by the bed. Mrs. Daniels was a thin, tired woman, a single mother who worked 2 jobs. Her face brightened when she saw Naomi. Oh, Miss Naomi. Thank Jesus. She has been asking for you all morning. Zuri lifted her head. Miss Naomi, she whispered. Hey, baby. My tummy hurts. I know it does, sweetheart. Naomi went to the bed. She sat on the edge. She took Zuri's small warm hand in hers. She bent down so her forehead was almost touching Zuri's forehead, and she said, very softly, tell me where it hurts the worst. Zuri pointed to her belly. Okay, we're going to fix it. But first I am going to tell you a secret. What secret? Today is a hard day. For both of us. So we're going to be brave together. Okay. Zuri's eyes filled with new tears. Why is your day hard, Miss Naomi? Naomi swallowed. She had not meant to say that. But the little girl was looking at her, and Naomi had never been able to lie to a child. Because somebody hurt my heart, baby. Oh. Zuri thought about this. Then she sat up, very carefully, and she put her small thin arms around Naomi's neck. I will hug your heart. Naomi held the child. She held her for a long time. She did not cry. She did not let herself cry. She breathed in the smell of the child's hair, that sweet smell of baby shampoo and hospital sheets, and she felt something happen inside of her chest. Something small, something quiet, something that felt almost like a door being unlocked. She did not have a name for it yet, but it was the first whisper of the dream that would change her life. She did not know it yet, but in that moment, holding Zuri Daniels in room 412 of Grady Pediatric Hospital, Naomi Bridgewater began the work of becoming the woman she would become. She finished her shift. She helped Zuri through her sickle cell crisis. She sat with 3 other children. She held the hand of a 6-year-old boy who was scared of his 4. She sang a quiet hymn to a baby who would not stop crying. She stayed 2 hours past her shift because Dr. Okonkwo had quietly told the charge nurse to keep her busy. When she finally left the hospital at 6 in the evening, she sat in her car in the parking lot for a long time. She put her hands on the steering wheel. She put her forehead on her hands. Her phone buzzed. It was a text. From Tobias. Hey, beautiful. Long day. Can I come over tomorrow night? I miss you. Naomi stared at the text. She read it 3 times. She did not answer. She started her car. She drove home. She walked into her apartment. She picked up the cream-colored envelope from where it sat on her kitchen table. She put it carefully in her purse. Then she picked up her phone, and she texted Renee. I need you to come over.
Now.
3 minutes later, Renee texted back. On my way. That night, Renee sat on Naomi's couch, read the wedding invitation, and said one quiet, fierce sentence that Naomi would remember for the rest of her life. He picked the wrong woman. It was Renee who came up with the plan. Renee, the paralegal, The woman who had spent 10 years working in a law office and watching men try to lie their way out of the truth. The woman who had a brain like a steel trap and a heart full of fire for the people she loved. She read the invitation 3 times. She turned it over in her hand. She looked at the seal. She looked at the calligraphy. She looked at the address printed on the back. Then she looked up at Naomi.
Naomi.
We are not going to do anything tonight. Okay. We are not going to call him. We are not going to text him. We are not going to scream at him. Do you hear me? Yes. We are going to be very, very smart. Because, baby, you do not just get to walk away from this. He owes you an answer. And I do not just mean an apology. He owes you the truth. The whole truth. And we're going to get it. Renee. Yes. What do you want me to do? Renee leaned forward. Her eyes were sharp. I want you to call her.
Who?
Her. The bride. Naomi went cold.
Renee.
I cannot.
Naomi.
Yes, you can. Listen to me. That woman, Solange Pemberton, is also a woman. She is a black woman. She is somebody's daughter. And I will bet you everything I own that she does not know about you. Because if Tobias Whitaker has lied to one woman, he has lied to 2. That is how these men work. Always. What if she does know? Then she is not the woman. You will know in one phone call. But, Naomi, I do not think she knows. I do not think a woman who is 6 weeks from her wedding day is also approving her fiancé to spend 3 nights a week at another woman's apartment. Naomi sat very still. She thought about it. She thought about Solange Pemberton, the woman in the champagne gown in the newspaper photograph. The woman with the long hair and the careful smile. The woman whose face she had been afraid to look at for too long. Okay, she said. Okay. But how do we even find her? Renee smiled. Baby, I am a paralegal. Finding people is what I do for a living. Give me 15 minutes. Renee took 15 minutes. In 15 minutes, she had pulled up Solange Pemberton's professional bio on a charity website, found her work email at her father's foundation, and located her on 3 social media platforms. She handed Naomi her phone. There. That is her direct line at the foundation office. They open at 9 in the morning.
Renee.
I cannot just call her at her job. Yes, you can. What do I even say? You say, Miss Pemberton, my name is Naomi Bridgewater. I have something I need to show you. It is about your fiancé. I think we should meet. And then what? And then you let her decide. Naomi did not sleep that night. She lay in her bed and stared at the ceiling, and she thought about every kindness Tobias Whitaker had ever shown her, and she watched each one shrink and die in her chest, like flowers in a frost. By morning, the kindnesses were gone. What was left was something hard and clear. She called Solange Pemberton at 9:15 the next morning. A bright voice answered. Pemberton Family Foundation, this is Solange. Miss Pemberton. My name is Naomi Bridgewater. You do not know me. I work at Grady Pediatric Hospital. I am calling about something very personal, and I need you to please not hang up. There was a pause. Miss Bridgewater, Solange said carefully, what is this about? It is about Tobias Whitaker. Another pause. A longer one. Miss Bridgewater, Solange said, and her voice had changed. It was lower now. Tighter. Where would you like to meet? They met that afternoon at a small tea house in Inman Park, a quiet place with green walls and good light. Naomi got there first. She sat at a corner table. She had brought a folder. Inside the folder were the wedding invitation, screenshots of texts Tobias had sent her, 2 photographs, and a printed timeline of the past 6 months. Solange Pemberton walked in 20 minutes later. She was as tall as the photographs had suggested. She was beautiful in person. Even more so. She wore camel-colored slacks and a cream silk blouse. Her hair was pulled back in a low bun. Her eyes, behind small gold-rimmed glasses, were red. She had been crying. Naomi knew, in that moment, that Renee had been right. Solange sat down across from her. For a long moment, neither woman spoke. Miss Bridgewater, Solange finally said. Her voice was very steady. I want you to tell me everything. From the beginning. Please leave nothing out. So Naomi did. She told her everything. The rainy night at the bar, the Italian restaurant in Buckhead, the phone calls during dinners, the locked drawer, the trips to Charleston, the week of distance, the cream-colored envelope, the wedding invitation with the gold edges. Solange listened. She did not cry. She held herself the way some women hold themselves when they have been holding themselves their whole life.
Still.
Straight. Hands folded. Eyes ahead. When Naomi was finished, Solange took a slow, even breath. Miss Bridgewater. Naomi.
Naomi.
I am going to tell you some things. And I am going to ask you to listen the way I just listened to you.
Can you do that?
Yes. Tobias Whitaker and I have been engaged for 14 months. We were childhood friends. Our mothers planned our wedding before we were old enough to vote. I did not love him. I do not love him. I have known for a long time that he did not love me. I told myself it did not matter. I told myself we would be partners. I told myself, like a lot of women in my world tell themselves, that love would come. She paused. I also knew. I did not know your name. I did not know your face. But I knew. 3 weeks ago, my mother and I were going through the seating chart, and I looked at the empty chair beside the table where my fiancé was supposed to sit, and I thought, that man is somewhere with another woman right now. Naomi felt her eyes fill. Miss Pemberton. Solange. Solange. I am so sorry. Do not apologize to me, Naomi. You did nothing wrong. You did not know. He used you.
He used me.
He used both of us. The only person who needs to apologize for anything in this room is a man who is not in this room. Solange opened her purse. She took out a tissue. She did not use it. She folded it neatly on the table. Naomi. May I see the envelope? Naomi slid it across. Solange opened it. She looked at the invitation for a long, quiet moment. She turned it over. She turned it back. Then she did something Naomi would never forget. She laughed. It was a soft laugh. A tired laugh. The laugh of a woman who has just realized that the cage she has been sitting in has had an open door the whole time. Naomi, Solange said, I want you to know something. Yes. There is not going to be a wedding. Solange. There is not. I am calling it off.
Today.
This afternoon. I am going to walk out of this tea house, and I am going to drive to my parents' house, and I am going to tell my mother that her dream of marrying her daughter into the Whitaker family is over. And then, Naomi, I am going to do something else. Something my mother is going to hate even more. What? Solange smiled. It was not a happy smile, but it was a real one. I am going to make sure that every single person in this city knows what kind of man Tobias Whitaker is. And not just for what he did to us. For what he did to a lot of other people. Did he ever tell you about the Hartfield Avenue project? Naomi shook her head. I thought not. Solange leaned in. Naomi, my fiancé, your boyfriend, has been working on a real estate scheme in Southeast Atlanta. A neighborhood his company is trying to buy out. They have been threatening elderly black homeowners. They have been letting buildings rot. They have been pushing families out of homes their grandmothers paid for in cash. I have been sitting on the file for 2 months. I did not know what to do with it. I did not have the courage. She looked at Naomi. Now I do. Naomi sat very still. The tea house was quiet around them. Soft music played somewhere. A woman 2 tables over was laughing at something on her phone. Naomi reached across the table. She took Solange's hand. Solange. Yes. Where is the neighborhood? Hartfield Avenue. Off Cleveland. Naomi's chest tightened. Hartfield Avenue. Off Cleveland. That was where her grandmother lived. The house on Hartfield Avenue had belonged to Naomi's grandmother for 51 years. It was a small, tidy, wood frame house, painted soft yellow, with a wide front porch and a garden in the back where Grandma Esther grew collards and tomatoes and 3 kinds of mint. The porch swing creaked when the wind blew. The front door was painted a deep blue, because Grandma had once read that a blue door kept the bad spirits out. In the living room, above the fireplace, was a framed photograph of Grandma's late husband, a kind-faced man in a Navy church suit who had died of a heart attack the year Naomi was born. Grandma Esther had bought that house in 1974 with cash she had saved up from working as a school cafeteria cook for 15 years. The bank had not wanted to give her a loan, so she had not asked for one. She had walked up to the seller, a white widow who was leaving the neighborhood as it changed, and she had counted out the money on the woman's kitchen table, in 20s and 50s, every bill bone clean and crisp, and she had walked out of that house holding the deed in her hand. Hartfield Avenue, in the years that followed, had become a quiet, proud, all-black neighborhood. The kind of street where the children played freeze tag in the summer until the streetlights came on. The kind of street where Sister Mabel Trotter sat on her porch every Sunday after church and called out who looked tired and who looked blessed. The kind of street where Deacon Lemuel Pratt would come over to fix a fence post for free just because that was what neighbors did. It was the kind of street that real estate developers in the year 2025 looked at like a diamond half buried in dirt. Naomi drove from the tea house in Inman Park straight to her grandmother's house. She did not speed. She did not cry. She kept her hands at 10 and 2 on the steering wheel, the way her late father had taught her when she was 16, and she breathed slow. She pulled into her grandmother's driveway at 5:15 in the afternoon. Grandma Esther was on the porch. She was sitting in her rocking chair, a cup of coffee in her hand, a small radio playing gospel music beside her. She wore a soft pink house dress and a white sweater. Her gray hair was wrapped in a silk scarf. She looked, in the late afternoon light, like a queen. "Baby," she said when she saw Naomi. "Now what brought you here on a Wednesday?" Naomi sat down on the porch step. She set the folder beside her. She looked up at her grandmother. Her grandmother looked back at her, and her grandmother's face changed. "Naomi Joy." "Grandma, you look like the dream came true." "It did." Grandma Esther set her coffee down. She reached into the small basket beside her rocking chair, where she kept her Bible and her buttermints and a small bottle of holy oil her pastor had blessed. She took out the oil. She put a drop on her thumb. She reached down and pressed her thumb to Naomi's forehead. "Tell Grandma," she said. Naomi told her. She told her about Tobias. She told her about the invitation. She told her about Solange. And then, slowly, carefully, she told her about Hartfield Avenue, about the real estate scheme, about what Tobias's company was trying to do to the neighborhood. Her grandmother did not move while she talked. Her grandmother only listened, the way a tree listens to the wind, deep and rooted and unafraid. When Naomi was finished, Grandma Esther was quiet for a long moment. Then she said very softly, "So, this is what the paper was." "Grandma, the paper in my dream, the paper that was burning your hands, this was it." "Yes, ma'am." "And, baby, you are not burned." "Grandma, you are not. You are standing. You are breathing. You are in your right mind. Look at you, Naomi Joy. You walked through the fire, and your hair did not even smell like smoke. The Lord is doing exactly what I told him to do. He is making you ready." "Ready for what?" "For your real life, baby. The one he had for you all along." Naomi cried then. She cried on her grandmother's porch step, with her face pressed to her grandmother's knee, and her grandmother stroked her hair the way she had stroked her hair when she was a little girl with a scraped knee, humming the song about morning mercies, while the sun went down soft and gold over Hartfield Avenue. What happened next happened fast. Solange Pemberton, true to her word, called off the wedding. She called off the wedding on the morning of October 16th, 2 days after the tea house meeting. She did it in a press release of all things. Her father, the senator, was furious. Her mother went to bed for 3 days. But Solange did it anyway. The press release was short. It said simply that after careful reflection, Miss Solange Pemberton has decided to end her engagement to Mr. Tobias Whitaker. She wishes him well, and she asks for the privacy of both families to be respected at this time. That was the polite version. The real version, the one that Atlanta's news stations got hold of within 48 hours, was that Solange Pemberton had walked into the offices of the Whitaker Real Estate Group with a folder of documents, slammed it down on Tobias's father's desk, and said, "Mr. Whitaker, I think you should read this before your wife does." Mr. Cornelius Whitaker had read the file. He had been silent for a very long time. Then, that same afternoon, he had called his son into his office, fired him from the company, and called the Atlanta Voice. The story broke on October 20th. The headline read, Whitaker real estate heir removed amid predatory property allegations in Southeast Atlanta. The article named names. It named buildings. It named the harassment of elderly homeowners. It named the false code violations. It named the dirty deals with a city zoning officer who would, by the end of the week, be under investigation. It even named, although gently, the rumor that the heir in question had been carrying on a romantic relationship with a young pediatric nurse from a neighborhood his company was trying to gut. The article did not print Naomi's name, but Atlanta is a small town when you get down to it, and a lot of people knew. Tobias Whitaker called Naomi 17 times the day the article came out. She did not answer once. He came to her apartment building at 10 in the evening. He stood downstairs and pressed her buzzer. He pressed it. He pressed it. He pressed it. She did not let him up. Renee was over. Renee, who had heard him buzzing, had finally gone to the intercom and pressed it and said, in her sweet paralegal voice, Mr. Whitaker, Naomi Bridgewater would like you to know that any further attempts to contact her will be considered harassment and that her attorney has all of the relevant documentation. Please remove yourself from the premises. Have the kind of evening you deserve. She had let go of the button. She had looked at Naomi. That felt good, Renee had said. Renee. Yes. You're going to have to tell me later how you became my attorney. Sweetheart, I have always been your attorney. I just was not getting paid for it. They had laughed. Naomi had laughed. For the first time in a week, she had laughed. That night, before she went to bed, Naomi pulled the cream-colored envelope out of her purse. She walked to her kitchen. She turned on her gas stove. She held the envelope over the small blue flame. She watched it catch. She watched the golden curl and turn black. She watched the names of 2 families that had wanted to use her, and a man who had wanted to use her, and a wedding that was no longer going to happen, all turn into ash and flowed into her sink. She washed the ashes down the drain. Then she went to bed, and she slept, for the first time in 7 days, without dreaming. The next morning, she went to work. And in room 412 of Grady Pediatric Hospital, little Zuri Daniels had a bad night. A very bad night. A bad night that would change the rest of Naomi Bridgewater's life. The morning after Naomi burned the wedding invitation, she walked into Grady Pediatric and found Dr. Imani Okonkwo in the hallway outside room 412. Dr. Okonkwo's face was tired.
Naomi.
Come. Naomi followed her into the small consultation room beside the ward. Zuri had a crisis last night. A bad one. We almost lost her around 3 in the morning. Her hemoglobin dropped to 4.2. We have her stable now, but she is exhausted. Her mother is exhausted. We need to talk. Naomi sat down slowly. Her chest hurt. What do you need to tell me? Zuri needs a long course of treatment that her mother cannot afford. The new sickle cell therapy protocols. The clinic visits. The infusions. The follow-ups. The transportation. Mrs. Daniels works 2 jobs. She does not have insurance. We have been patching her up at the hospital, but Naomi, that is not how a child like Zuri stays alive. She needs ongoing care. She needs a clinic. A clinic that knows her family, that does not charge them to walk in the door. Atlanta has clinics. Atlanta has clinics. Atlanta does not have enough clinics that look like Zuri, or that are run by people who look like Zuri's mother, or that exist in neighborhoods like Hartfield Avenue. The 2 women looked at each other. Hartfield Avenue, Naomi said quietly. Yes. Dr. Okonkwo. Why are you saying that to me? Dr. Imani Okonkwo took off her glasses. She set them on the desk between them. Because, Naomi, I have been watching you for 5 years. I have watched you with these children. I have watched the way you sit with their mothers in the waiting room. I have watched you take your lunch break to teach a teenage father how to braid his daughter's hair. I have watched you, and there is a thing I have wanted to say to you for 2 years. I have not said it because I did not think you were ready. And now I think you are. Now I think the thing that broke you this week broke you in the right places. Now I think it is time. Time for what? Time for you to build the clinic, Naomi. Naomi's hands began to shake. Dr. Okonkwo. Naomi. I have no money. I know. I have no building. I know. I do not know how to start a clinic. You know more than you think. I will help you. I will be your partner. I am tired of working in this hospital, Naomi. I am tired of patching up babies and sending them home to nothing. I have been waiting for you to be ready because I cannot do this with anyone else. I want to do this with you, Dr. Okonkwo. Imani. Call me Imani. Naomi began to cry. She cried again. She had not cried this much since she was 12, since the year her mother died, but the crying was different now. The crying was not breaking her. The crying was washing her. Dr. Okonkwo, Imani, reached across the desk. She took Naomi's hand.
Naomi.
Listen to me. I have been thinking about this clinic for 2 years. I have a draft of a business plan. I have a list of grants. I have a list of pediatricians who would come work for less than they should because they believe in this. What I have not had is the woman to lead it. The face. The heart. The person the families would walk through the door for. You want me to be the face? I want you to be the founder. Imani, I am a nurse. You are a nurse who knows every grandmother on Hartfield Avenue. You are a nurse who has been holding babies for 10 years. You are a nurse who carries a Bible in her bag and cries when a child asks her about heaven. You are exactly the woman who needs to lead this clinic. The hospital is willing to give us a partnership. The land, Naomi. We need the land. And I've been told that there is a vacant lot on Hartfield Avenue that the city has been looking to release. A lot that, until recently, was being eyed by a real estate company that has just imploded in scandal. The two women looked at each other. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Naomi laughed. A small, watery, amazed laugh. Imani, the Lord. The Lord. The Lord is funny. The Lord is very funny. What happened in the next 6 weeks happened in the way that small miracles always happen, slow and then fast. Naomi went home that night and told Renee. Renee, who had been waiting for a fight her whole life, called every nonprofit lawyer she knew and got 3 of them on a conference call by the next morning. Solange Pemberton called Naomi the day after that. Solange said, Naomi, I have been sitting with what to do with my life since I called off my wedding. Do you need a fundraiser? Do you need somebody to call rich people? I've been trained to call rich people since I was 4 years old. Naomi said yes. Solange said good. Solange called rich people. The Pemberton Family Foundation, in its first act of independence from Senator Pemberton's political shadow, announced a $1 million lead grant to the Hartfield Pediatric Clinic, a community health center serving the children of Southeast Atlanta. Mr. Cornelius Whitaker called Naomi himself. It was a strange call. He was a quiet, formal, old-fashioned man, and his voice sounded ashamed. Miss Bridgewater, I owe you an apology. My son did things to you that no man should do to a woman, and my company did things to your neighborhood that no company should do to a neighborhood. I cannot take any of it back, but I would like to do something. I would like to gift the lot on Hartfield Avenue to your clinic. I would also like to fund the construction of the building. I would not put my family name on it. I would only ask that you accept it. Naomi was quiet for a long time. Mr. Whitaker. Yes. I accept. Thank you, Miss Bridgewater. Mr. Whitaker. Yes. How is your son? He paused. My son, Miss Bridgewater, is going through what I am told is called a reckoning. I will not lie to you. I am, in my private heart, glad of it. He has lost his job. He has lost his fiancée. He has lost the respect of his peers. He has been told, by his mother, that he is no longer welcome at our family home until he has done some serious looking at himself. I do not know if he will ever do that looking. But that is not your problem anymore, is it?
No, sir.
It is not. Goodbye, Miss Bridgewater. Goodbye, Mr. Whitaker. Naomi hung up. She sat very still in her kitchen. Then she called Renee, and Solange,
And Imani.
and Pastor Hollis, and her grandmother. She called every one of them, one after the other, and she said the same thing. It is happening. The clinic by the second week of December had a name. The Hartfield Avenue Children's Clinic. The clinic had a board of directors. It had 3 pediatricians who had agreed to come on staff. It had a head nurse, who was Naomi. It had a director of operations, who was Renee, who had quit her paralegal job. It had a development director, who was Solange. And it had Dr. Imani Okonkwo as its medical director. It also had, on the very first page of its mission statement, a single sentence that Naomi had written herself. This clinic exists because every child deserves a doctor who knows their name. And little Zuri Daniels, the 7-year-old girl who had hugged Naomi's heart on the worst morning of Naomi's life, was going to be the first official patient at the front door on the day the clinic opened. Naomi did not know yet, in early December, that the opening would be one of the most beautiful days of her life. She did not know yet that the whole city would come out for it. She did not know yet that her grandmother would stand on the front steps in a brand new lavender hat and read the dedication prayer. She did not know yet that Tobias Whitaker, in a quiet courthouse on the other side of town, was being charged with 2 counts of fraud and was on his way to a plea deal. She only knew, for now, that she had work to do. So she worked. The construction of the Hartfield Avenue Children's Clinic took 10 weeks. 10 weeks, from the first day the bulldozer rolled onto the lot at the corner of Hartfield and Lyle, to the morning Naomi Bridgewater stood in front of a finished, gleaming, soft yellow building with a wide front porch, a deep blue front door, and a neat sign in gold lettering that read, "The Hartfield Avenue Children's Clinic, where every child has a name." Naomi had picked the colors herself. She had picked the soft yellow because it was the color of her grandmother's house. She had picked the blue door for the same reason her grandmother had a blue door. She had picked the gold lettering because she had wanted, for once in her life, for the clinic the children walked into to look like a place that loved them before they even crossed the threshold. The neighborhood had built the clinic. That was the thing that surprised Naomi the most, and the thing she would tell, decades later, to anyone who asked her how it all began. The neighborhood had built it. Deacon Lemuel Pratt, who was almost 70 years old, had been on the construction site every morning at 6. He had a hammer in one hand and a thermos of coffee in the other, and he had personally helped frame the wing of the building where the family waiting area would go. He had said, "I helped raise half the children on this street. I am going to help raise the building where they will get well." Sister Mabel Trotter, who had a mouth like a town crier, had become the unofficial publicity director of the clinic. She told everybody. She told the women at the beauty shop. She told the deacons at the bake sale. She told the men at the barber shop. She told her sister in Macon, who told her sister-in-law in Augusta, who told her cousin in Birmingham. By the time the clinic's exterior was painted, the Hartfield Avenue Children's Clinic had been featured in 3 small newspapers and 1 regional magazine, all because Sister Mabel had a phone book and a hot tongue. Mrs. Daniels, Zuri's mother, had quit one of her 2 jobs and had come on as the clinic's first volunteer family liaison. Naomi had hired her on as full-time staff once she saw how good Mrs. Daniels was with the other mothers. Mrs. Daniels had cried in Naomi's office on her first day and said, "Miss Naomi, I have spent 7 years feeling like I was a burden on every nurse in every hospital in this city. And you are giving me a chance to be the woman who tells other mothers that they are not a burden." Naomi had hugged her. Naomi had hugged a lot of people in those 10 weeks. She had hugged Solange, who had come to the construction site 3 times a week in her camel slacks, ruined them in the dust, and learned the names of every man on the build. She had hugged Imani, who had been on the phone with the Department of Health more times than she could count, getting the clinic licensed. She had hugged Renee, who had kept a spreadsheet of every dollar that came in and every dollar that went out, and who had once cried in the parking lot because the soft yellow paint had come in the wrong shade. She had hugged her grandmother. She had hugged her grandmother every Sunday after church, on the porch of the little yellow house on Hartfield Avenue, 2 blocks from where the clinic was being built. Grandma Esther had watched the building go up. She had watched it the way she had watched everything in her long life, with patient eyes and a quiet smile and her hand on her Bible. One Sunday afternoon, in mid-January, Grandma Esther had looked at Naomi and said, "Baby, come inside. I want to give you something." Naomi had followed her grandmother into the small bedroom at the back of the house. Grandma Esther had opened the top drawer of her dresser. She had taken out a small velvet box. For a long, terrible second, Naomi's heart had stopped. The last small velvet box she had seen had been in Tobias Whitaker's nightstand 6 months ago, the night she had not asked. But this box was different. This box was older. The velvet was rubbed soft. The hinge was loose. Grandma Esther opened it. Inside was a thin gold chain with a small gold cross on it. "This was your mother's," Grandma said. "Your mother got it for me on her 16th birthday. I have been keeping it for you. I was waiting, Naomi Joy, until I knew you were ready." "Grandma, you are ready." Naomi let her grandmother fasten the chain around her neck. She felt the small, cool weight of the cross settle against her chest, just above her heart. She wore that cross every day for the rest of her life. The day before the clinic opened, Naomi walked through the empty building one last time. It was a Friday evening. The sun was going down. The big new windows of the clinic were full of soft amber light. The waiting room had pale blue walls, with a small mural that a local artist had painted for free, a mural of children of every shade running through a field of sunflowers. The exam rooms had warm white walls and small posters of a human body that did not look scary, but looked like a tour you might go on. There was a quiet room for mothers who needed to nurse. There was a play corner for siblings. There was a small kitchen, donated by a soul food restaurant on Auburn Avenue, where Mrs. Daniels could heat up a meal for any family that came in hungry. Naomi stood in the lobby. She closed her eyes. She thought about everything. She thought about the rainy night in April, when she had laughed in a restaurant and a man had walked across the room. She thought about the locked drawer. She thought about the cream-colored envelope. She thought about the bathroom floor. She thought about Zuri's small, thin arms around her neck. She thought about her grandmother's thumb pressing oil to her forehead. She thought about Solange Pemberton, sitting across from her in the tea house, saying, "There's not going to be a wedding." She thought about the burning paper and the gold ink curling into black. She thought about all of it. She opened her eyes. She looked at the clinic. She said, very quietly, in the empty soft amber lobby of the building she had built, "Lord, thank you." Then she went home. The night before opening day, she could not sleep. She lay in her bed, the same bed where she had once dreamed about being a wife, and she thought about how strange life was. How a woman could lie down in a bed believing one thing, and get up 4 months later believing something completely different. How a woman could lose what she thought she wanted and find what she had been called for. How the worst thing that ever happened to her could turn out to be the smallest part of the story. She thought about a verse her grandmother had taught her when she was 10 years old. "Weeping may endure for a night," the verse said, "but joy comes in the morning." She had cried for a lot of nights in the months between April and January. The morning was almost here. The Hartfield Avenue Children's Clinic opened on the first Saturday in February at 10 o'clock in the morning, on a clear, cold day with a sky the color of a robin's egg. The whole street came. That was the part Naomi would remember the most. Not the speeches. Not the news cameras, although 3 local stations had come. Not the fact that the mayor of Atlanta had sent a representative. Not the fact that 2 state senators were there, although Senator Pemberton, Solange's father, had not been one of them because he and his daughter were not yet on speaking terms, although they would be in time. Not the fact that Mr. Cornelius Whitaker had quietly attended and stood in the very back row, his hat in his hand, and had nodded once at Naomi from across the crowd. It was the neighborhood that Naomi would remember. It was Sister Mabel Trotter in her best Sunday hat, the navy one with the rhinestone trim, telling everybody who would listen that she had known Naomi Bridgewater since she was knee-high to a grasshopper. It was Deacon Lemuel Pratt in his work jacket, standing beside the front door, ready to cut the ribbon. It was Pastor Hollis Greaves in his good gray suit, holding a small leather Bible, ready to give the dedication prayer. It was the women from Grandma Esther's church kitchen, who had set up tables of food along the side of the building, plates of fried chicken and macaroni and cheese and greens and yellow cake, because, as one of them had said, you cannot open a building in this neighborhood without feeding the people. It was Renee in a sharp red coat, her clipboard in her hand, directing volunteers like a general. It was Solange in a soft cream wrap dress, her hair down for the first time since Naomi had met her, looking in the morning light like a woman who had finally been let out of a long room. It was Imani at the front door of the clinic in her white coat, her stethoscope around her neck, ready to be the first doctor through the door. It was Mrs. Daniels in a blue dress, holding her daughter Zuri's hand.
And it was Zuri.
Zuri Daniels, 7 years old, in a red velvet dress and white tights, with 2 soft puffs of hair tied with red ribbons, and her missing front tooth on full display, because she was smiling. She was smiling like a girl who had been told that her name was painted on a wall inside, even though it was not yet, but Naomi was going to make sure that by the end of the day, it would be. And in the middle of it all, on the front porch of the soft yellow building, with her purple hat slightly tilted on her gray head and a small gardenia pinned to her lapel, was Grandma Esther Bridgewater. Grandma Esther was 71 years old. She was supposed to give the dedication prayer. Pastor Hollis had asked her. He had said, "Mother Bridgewater, your granddaughter built this place. The Lord wants the prayer to come from your mouth." Grandma Esther had said yes. She had then spent 2 weeks writing it out by hand, on lined notebook paper, in pencil, because pencil was easier to erase if she changed her mind. When the moment came, Pastor Hollis stepped forward to the small microphone on the porch. He held up his hands. The crowd on Hartfield Avenue, which had grown to over 200 people, fell quiet. Brothers and sisters, we gather today to dedicate this clinic to the children of this community, to the families of this community, and to the God who has been good to all of us. I would like to ask Mother Esther Bridgewater, the grandmother of our founder, to lead us in prayer. Mother Bridgewater. Grandma Esther stood up slowly. She walked to the microphone. Her hand shook a little on her cane. Naomi, who was standing right behind her, almost reached out, but did not. She knew her grandmother. She knew her grandmother did not need to be reached for. She would say what she had to say. Grandma Esther took the microphone in one hand. She unfolded the lined notebook paper with the other. She did not look at it. She did not, in the end, read a single word of what she had written. She looked out over the crowd, over the heads of the women in their hats and the men in their good coats, over the children sitting on the curb, over the news cameras and the senators and the strangers who had come because they had read about the clinic in the paper. She looked, finally, at her granddaughter. "Lord," Grandma Esther said. Her voice was strong. "Lord, I want to thank you for this morning." She paused. "I want to thank you for the breaking. I want to thank you for the binding. I want to thank you for the road that did not go where we thought it was going." A few amens rose up from the crowd. "I want to thank you for the woman who used to sit on my lap when she was a little baby and who used to ask me, 'Grandma, why does the sky go from blue to dark?' I want to thank you for keeping that woman alive when her mama died. I want to thank you for keeping her standing when a man tried to break her. I want to thank you for showing her, Lord, that she was never the temporary thing. She was always the main thing. She was always the woman you wrote into the book before the book was even printed." Naomi began to cry. She stood on the porch in her cream-colored coat, her mother's gold cross around her neck, and she let the tears run down her face without wiping them. "And, Lord, we dedicate this building. We dedicate every wall, every window, every chair, every little sticker on every little chart. We dedicate the babies that will come through that blue door. We dedicate the mamas and the daddies and the grannies and the annies. We dedicate the doctors and the nurses and the helpers. We give all of it to you." "Yes, Lord," said Sister Mabel Trotter loud from the second row. "And, Lord, one more thing." Grandma Esther's voice softened. "There is a little girl down there in the front. Her name is Zuri Daniels." Zuri, in her red velvet dress, looked up. "This little girl, Lord, she is the reason we are here. Not the man, not the wedding, not the wickedness. This little girl. You used a little girl in a hospital bed, Lord, to call my granddaughter into her real life. So before we open this door, Lord, we want to say thank you for Zuri Daniels. May she walk into this clinic today, and may she walk out of it strong, and may she grow up to be a woman who knows that a whole street loved her." Grandma Esther closed her eyes. "In Jesus' name."
Amen.
The crowd answered, "Amen." Deacon Lemuel Pratt stepped forward with a pair of scissors. He held them out to Naomi. Naomi shook her head.
"Deacon."
"You cut it. You built half this building." Miss Naomi. No, ma'am. Yes, sir. He cut the ribbon. The crowd cheered. Naomi on the porch turned to Zuri. She held out her hand. Zuri Daniels, are you ready to be the first patient at the Hartfield Avenue Children's Clinic? Zuri took her hand. Yes, Miss Naomi. They walked through the blue front door together. Behind them, the neighborhood streamed in. The food was set out. The children ran through the hallways. The cameras filmed. Sister Mabel told everybody, again, that she had known Naomi when she was a baby. Pastor Hollis blessed the exam rooms one by one. Imani shook the hand of every doctor who had come on staff. Renee got a phone call from a pharmaceutical company that wanted to donate a year of supplies and managed not to scream into the phone. Solange stood in the lobby and watched a little boy press his face against the mural of the children running through sunflowers, and she cried, quietly, for the first time since the day she had called off her wedding. Naomi found her grandmother sitting in the small chair beside the front desk. She knelt down. She put her head on her grandmother's knee. Grandma. Baby. You were right about the dream. I told you, Naomi Joy. I told you the breaking was the part where he cracks the seed open. Yes, ma'am. Now look what grew. Naomi looked up. She looked through the front door, out into the morning, where the sun was high now, where the children were running, where the women in hats were laughing, where the men in coats were eating fried chicken off paper plates, where her best friend was on the phone, where her unexpected new friend was wiping her eyes, where her doctor was greeting families, where Hartfield Avenue, the street where her grandmother had bought a house in 1974 with cash on a kitchen table, was filling up with the sound of a community that had not been bought out, would not be bought out, was alive. Naomi looked at all of it. She thought about a cream-colored envelope on a welcome mat at 6:14 in the morning. She thought about a man who had called her temporary. She thought, for 1 second, about how he had been wrong about her in every possible way. Then she let the thought go. She stood up. She put her hand on her grandmother's shoulder. She walked back into the lobby of her clinic, and she went to find Zuri. There was work to do. There were children to know. There was a long, full, beautiful life to live. And the morning, on the first Saturday in February in the year 2026, in the city of Atlanta, on a street called Hartfield Avenue, was finally, fully, completely here.